My name is Chloe, and I'd like to share how my family dynamics changed dramatically over the years. It began when I was 7 and my younger brother Henry was 7. I remember vividly the day everything started to change. My mother had just taken Henry to his first serious music lesson. When they returned, she was ecstatic, calling me over with a voice bubbling with excitement. "Chloe, your brother is a musical prodigy," she exclaimed. At the time, I didn't fully understand what that meant, but her enthusiasm was infectious. "His teacher says he has perfect pitch. That's incredibly rare. He's destined to be a star." From then on, Henry became the center of our family's universe. My mom stopped working part-time to dedicate herself to managing Henry's burgeoning music career, turning our living room into a makeshift studio filled with musical instruments and recording equipment. Henry indeed had a beautiful voice, almost angelic, but as he received more attention, I felt increasingly overlooked. My father, overwhelmed by work, was hardly around. He would leave early in the morning and return late at night. Over the weekends, he preferred the solitude of the garage or the passive company of the television. Consequently, I learned to be self-sufficient, preparing my own meals, completing homework independently, and keeping my small troubles to myself. However, it wasn't all gloomy for me. I found solace in books, my close friends, and especially in my grandmother, who was starkly different from my mother. Grounded and practical, she ran a local bakery store. By the age of 14, I was helping her there after school. "You're a hard worker, Chloe, and wise with money," she'd tell me, peering over her glasses. Her affirmation was a stark contrast to the general neglect I felt at home, making me feel valued for who I was, not just as Henry's sister. Meanwhile, Henry thrived under our mother's devoted attention. By 7, he had already won several local singing contests. Mom would parade his trophies and certificates, beaming with pride. "Did you see Henry on TV last night?" she would often ask, without waiting for my response, praising his talent as unmatched by any child in recent years. Although I tried to share in the joy for Henry's successes, a part of me always felt a pang of jealousy seeing the disparity in how we were treated. As we got older, the gap widened further. While I attended the local public school, Henry was sent to a prestigious private academy renowned for its music program. Each morning, Mom would fuss over him as she dropped him off, while I had already been on the early bus to school. This divide in our educational experiences and the contrasting attention we received only accentuated the feelings of being left in the shadows of my younger brother's spotlight. After an exhausting day filled with back-to-back classes and helping out at Grandma's quaint little shop, I trudged back home. As I pushed open the door, the sight that greeted me was Mom and my brother Henry, sitting amidst a sea of colorful brochures scattered across the kitchen table. Dropping my heavy backpack by the door, I couldn't help but ask, "What's all this?" Mom's face lit up with an excitement I hadn't seen in a while. "Oh, Kim, you won't believe it. Henry has been invited to audition for the National Youth Choir. It's happening in New York. We need to sort out his outfit, book the flights, find a hotel." Her voice was a mix of excitement and slight panic. "But can we afford all that?" I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. Mom's smile wavered for just a second. "We'll make it work. This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance for Henry. We can't miss it." I nodded, trying to squash the rising mix of emotions. As I headed to my room, the weight of being constantly overlooked in favor of Henry's pursuits hung heavily on me. I was proud of him, truly, but it hurt being the perpetual second fiddle in our family. Later that night, the muffled strains of an argument between Mom and Dad reached my ears through their bedroom door. "We're already stretched thin, Layla," Dad's voice was strained. "We can't keep up this spending." "But this could be Henry's big break," Mom countered, her voice thick with emotion. "And what about Kim?" Dad's voice grew louder. "We've saved nothing for her college." There was a heavy silence before Mom replied, softer. "Kim's clever. She'll earn scholarships. She's always been resourceful. She'll manage." Those words, "she'll manage," echoed in my mind as I lay in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. It seemed I was always expected to fend for myself. The next day at Grandma's store, while I was restocking shelves, Grandma called me over. Chloe, her voice was soft, concerned. Is everything all right? You seem elsewhere today. The floodgates opened, and I poured out everything. Henry's audition, the financial strain, my own uncertainties about college. Grandma listened, her expression growing more worried with each word. After a moment, she spoke, her decision firm yet gentle. Chloe, you're a dedicated worker. How about we start giving you a proper salary here? Not just pocket money, but something you could save towards your college fund. For the first time in a long while, I felt genuinely seen and valued. I embraced her, a plan beginning to form in my mind. With Grandma's support, I wouldn't have to wait for someone else to recognize my worth. I could start carving out my own path. Over the next few years, I dedicated myself to my studies and my job at the store. By the time I was 17, I had saved enough to aim for my next big purchase, a laptop for school. Excited, I went to retrieve my savings from the pink ceramic piggy bank Grandma had given me years ago. But as I shook it, something felt wrong. The familiar jingle of coins was absent. My heart pounded as I opened it up, only to find it completely empty. In the midst of a bustling city, my brother Henry had the spotlight on him during a grand celebration, complete with a professional photographer and a gleaming new car adorned with a massive red bow parked conspicuously outside. I kept to the periphery, watching as he gleefully soaked in the adoration and gifts from attendees. Despite a twinge of jealousy, I held no grudge against Henry. He was merely the beneficiary of a life meticulously crafted by our parents, especially our mother. Several months later, my spirits lifted when I received my college acceptance letter to study economics in a neighboring state. Better yet, I had secured a partial scholarship. However, the term partial quickly became a stark reminder of its limitations. The scholarship wouldn't cover all my expenses, leading me to seek financial assistance from my parents one evening. Mom, Dad, I've been accepted into State University for economics. I have a scholarship, but I need help with the remaining tuition and living costs. My father, glancing up from his newspaper, furrowed his brow, expressing pride about the scholarship but reminding me of our tight financial situation, exacerbated by Henry's expensive music school fees. My mother chimed in, encouraging me to be resourceful and consider getting a job, given my independent nature. Feeling defeated, I retreated to my room. As I sat there, a text from Grandma popped up, inquiring about my discussion with my parents. I called her, voice quivering, and shared the disappointing news. Grandma, ever the pillar of support, assured me, "Chloe, don't worry. We'll figure this out together." True to her promise, she helped establish a college fund for me. Coupled with my scholarship and a part-time job at a local college canteen, I managed to fund my education. "Chloe, you're destined for great things." Grandma's encouraging words resonated with me, especially during challenging times juggling studies and work. Despite the distance, I occasionally reached out to Henry, maintaining our sibling bond as he pursued his studies at a prestigious music college, fully funded by our parents. After 4 years of relentless dedication and balancing a stringent budget, I graduated with a degree in economics. Armed with my qualifications and a resolute spirit, I returned to my hometown. It wasn't long before I secured a position at a well-respected credit analyst and rented a cozy apartment, gradually establishing a rewarding life independent of my family's influence. I embraced new friendships, explored hiking, and even ventured into dating. One rainy Tuesday evening, an unexpected knock on my door revealed my mother, her appearance unusually frazzled. Chloe had always been the dependable one, so when her mother approached her with a sense of urgency, her anxiety was palpable. "Chloe, I need your help," her mother said, her voice shaking, sending a shiver through Chloe. It was rare for her mother to seek help, and the seriousness in her tone was alarming. "What's wrong?" Chloe asked, guiding her mother to sit on the sofa. Her mother's eyes were glistening with unshed tears as she sank down, looking exhausted. "I'm very sick, Kim," she confessed, her voice fraught with worry. "The doctors have recommended treatment, but our insurance falls short of covering the costs." The weight of her words hit Chloe hard. "How much is needed?" she inquired gently. It's $19,010, her mother murmured, almost inaudible. I know it's a lot, but I didn't know who else to ask. Your father and I have used up all our savings on Henry's education, hoping it would soon pay off. The next day, they went to the bank. The ride over was silent, tense. As they waited in line, her mother spoke softly, pride in her voice. Henry's been doing well. He's received offers from top music groups. Once he signs a deal, we can repay you quickly. Chloe nodded, only half listening as she contemplated the financial strain the loan would place on her. After completing what seemed like endless paperwork, she transferred $200,000 to her mother's account. A few days later, while checking social media, Chloe's heart sank. Photos of Henry, her brother, enjoying himself in the Swiss Alps popped up on her feed. Confused and alarmed, she texted him. His casual reply revealed that the trip was a gift from their mother to help overcome a creative block, and he would be staying there for 3 months. Stunned, Chloe called her mother. We need to talk about the loan for Henry's trip. How could you lie about something like this? She demanded. Her mother's response was dismissive. Your brother is a creative soul. He needs this kind of experience to thrive. It's an investment in his future, and we should all support him. Support him? Chloe's voice rose with incredulity. By taking out loans we can't afford and lying about it. Don't be so stingy, her mother retorted. You should be glad to help your brother. That was the last straw for Chloe. I want the money back. All of it, she insisted. Her mother's laugh was cold and sharp. Don't be ridiculous, Chloe. The money's already spent. Besides, you're doing well. You don't need it. If you don't pay me back, I will take legal action, Chloe warned, her voice trembling with anger. The line went silent for a moment before her mother exploded. So your own mother? You're a terrible daughter, she exclaimed, disbelief in her tone. Chloe hung up, her mind reeling from the betrayal. She was left feeling alone and unsure of her next steps, questioning the familial bonds she once thought were unbreakable. I brought up such a callous, self-centered child, I thought, as I struggled to keep my voice steady during the heated conversation. This is your last chance, Mom, I warned her, my tone firm but shaking. Repay me or I'll see you in court. She retorted dismissively. Go ahead, see if I care. You're nothing to me now, Chloe. And with those harsh words, the phone line went silent. I sat frozen, clutching the phone, a torrent of anger and shock coursing through me. Although I had braced myself for a tough talk, I hadn't anticipated such a harsh ending. In a daze, I dialed my grandmother, the one person I knew would always stand by me. Tears streamed down my face as I recounted the ordeal to her. Grandma listened with infinite patience, her soothing voice a balm as I spilled my frustrations and fears. When I had finished, there was a brief silence before she spoke with conviction. Chloe, what your mother did was unacceptable. If you decide to pursue this legally, I'm behind you. I know an excellent lawyer, a friend's son, who might handle your case for a reduced rate. The ensuing months were a whirlwind of legal meetings, document preparations, and restless nights. True to her promise, Grandma took care of the legal expenses and introduced me to Michael, a sharp, young attorney. This is a straightforward case, Michael reassured me during our initial consultation, armed with bank statements and incriminating text messages. Your mother won't be able to dispute these. The day of the trial, I faced my mother in court for the first time in months. She was the picture of stoic anger, ignoring my presence completely. The trial itself was a blur. Michael presented our case with clarity and precision, while my mother's fabricated story of a family emergency crumbled under scrutiny. Eventually, the judge ruled in my favor, ordering her to repay the $200,000 plus interest and legal costs. Days after the trial, I learned my mother had secured a loan to repay me. The money was returned to my account, but the victory felt empty. I had won the lawsuit, but at the cost of my familial bonds. The fallout was immediate and intense. A friend notified me of a post my mother had shared on social media, depicting herself as a martyr, wronged by her own daughter, whom she had sacrificed everything for. Calls and messages flooded in, not with support, but with scorn from relatives who had only heard her side. "You've disgraced our family," my aunt rebuked me. "Don't show your face at the family reunion," a cousin texted, while an uncle cautioned me against further contact. Throughout this tumultuous period, Grandma's unwavering support was my only solace. She remained a steadfast beacon of love and understanding, reminding me that sometimes standing up for oneself means standing alone. She reached out to me every day, her voice a calm antidote to my frayed nerves. "Ignore those fools," she'd say with conviction. "They have no clue about everything that's been happening in that house for years." A week after my mother's online posts went viral, an unfamiliar number appeared on my phone. It was my father calling after many years. "I've seen your mother's posts," he started, and I steeled myself for the expected criticism. Instead, he surprised me. "I want to hear your side, the whole story." So I shared everything with him. Years of feeling neglected, the incident that shattered my piggy bank, the hardships during college, and the ultimate betrayal that culminated in a lawsuit. After I finished, there was a heavy silence. Then, filled with emotion, my father finally spoke. "Chloe, I'm so sorry. I failed you. I just followed your mother's lead, convincing myself that working long hours was providing for the family. But in truth, I was just running away from our problems at home. I should have been there for you." Tears streamed down my face as we engaged in the most open and honest conversation we'd ever had. "I have a lot to make up for," he admitted, "but if you're willing, I'd like to start being the father I should have been." Our talk lifted a huge burden off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt supported by a parent. It wasn't going to resolve everything overnight, but it was a beginning. After our heart-to-heart, Dad started to scrutinize our family finances, something he confessed he should have done long ago. He discovered my mom had been secretly siphoning money from their joint account for years, all to support my brother Henry's ambitions. Worse still, she had taken out multiple loans in their names to fund his pursuits, plunging them deep into debt, facts my father had been oblivious to. The resulting confrontation was intense. I wasn't present, but neighbors recounted hearing loud arguments, the smashing of dishes, and eventually, police sirens. In the fallout, my father filed for divorce. The proceedings were tumultuous, and in the end, my mother ended up with half of everything, which barely covered her enormous debts. I kept my distance from Mom, focusing instead on mending my relationship with Dad and appreciating my grandmother's steadfast support. Life began to stabilize, and a year after the divorce, my mother resumed boasting on social media. Henry had graduated from music college and joined a renowned band. Her posts were brimming with vindication, throwing subtle digs at Dad and me. "Some couldn't see the potential," she'd write, "but a mother always knows. Who's laughing now?" Despite her provocations, I kept my peace. My career was flourishing. I had just made a down payment on my first apartment, and I was finally starting to feel grounded and hopeful. I had reached a stable place in my life, and Dad seemed to be doing better as well. Happier and more relaxed than ever before. However, life often has a way of surprising us with unexpected challenges. 5 years after my brother Henry's initial success, he embarked on another journey to Switzerland. His social media was filled with stunning pictures of the Alps and videos of him enjoying festivities with his bandmates. Then, on a brisk morning, he decided to film himself singing atop a mountain to showcase his vocal skills in the thin, cold air. Unfortunately, this turned out to be a disastrous decision. Henry caught a severe cold, which developed into a serious throat infection. Despite receiving top-notch medical care, the damage to his vocal cords was irreversible. Henry lost his ability to sing. The impact of this news was devastating for Mom. Neighbors later shared with me how they heard screams and the sound of objects being smashed coming from our house. Concerned, they checked on her and found her in a state of complete hysteria, unable to recognize anyone and incessantly talking about lost opportunities and shattered dreams. It became necessary to seek professional help, and Mom was admitted to a mental health facility, diagnosed with a severe nervous breakdown that had been worsened by years of accumulated stress. Meanwhile, Henry fell into a deep depression and began abusing alcohol. For months, It was uncertain whether he would recover. Gradually, with the unwavering support from Dad and myself, he began to make positive changes. He achieved sobriety and, in a surprising twist, decided to go to college to become a choir teacher. I may not be able to sing anymore, he confessed to me over coffee one day, but perhaps I can guide other kids who love music to pursue their passion correctly, without the undue pressure and unrealistic expectations. I felt an immense pride swelling within me for my younger brother. That's a wonderful idea, Henry, I told him. As I drove home that evening, I pondered the roller coaster ride of the past few years. I thought about Mom, still receiving care in the facility, trapped in a reality of her own creation. About Dad, who was finally able to live life on his own terms. About Henry, carving out a new path for himself. And about myself, having stood firm, advocated for what was just, and emerged stronger for it.